Good evening. Welcome to the North Shore School District Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, on behalf of the board, I welcome all members of the audience to this evening's meeting. This meeting is a working session of the board to conduct the business of the district. The agenda for today's meeting has been published, and the agenda items to be discussed and or voted on have been published or have been studied by the board members. I'd like to introduce the people participating in this meeting. Recording Secretary Siobhan Frazier, Superintendent Dr. Michele Reid, board members Amy Cass, David Kogan, Sandy Hayes, and Jacqueline McGurty, and I'm Bob Swain. I currently serve as president of the board. So an agenda for this evening's meeting is available, of course, online at boarddocs.com if you'd like to follow along. So we'll go to the approval of the overall agenda. Would the board like to make any changes to the agenda as it has been published? Let's see. Oh, good.
No.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been a motion and a second. Any discussion? No, of course not. So I'll call for the vote. See if our handy dandy voting thing works here.
There we go.
Works for me. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Now this evening, this is the last meeting of December, and this is typically reserved for the election of officers, since it typically, this time of the year falls after an election. But every year we review and talk about who wants to be officers this year, different positions. So I guess I'll call for nominations to start for president to serve during the ensuing year for one-year appointment. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Director Swain to continue in a second term as president.
Well, thank you.
Second.
Wow,
Third.
Third.
We could just do the vote.
Can I do
Third
fourth?
last pick. Jump on board.
You've done such a great job, Bob, really. So
really
thanks
have.
for all the time and all the balancing act you've done this year with everything we've had going on.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm honored to serve another term. I feel like I've just kind of got this figured out, getting into the groove. It does take a while, for sure, just to get the whole agenda thing rolling through in the meetings and all that. It is a pleasure to serve in the position. So I guess, do I have to accept?
Probably.
We
I
vote.
should accept.
Okay, so we request a roll call for the vote of the president, election of president. Okay, I guess it's been moved and seconded that myself, Bob Swain, will serve another term. I don't know, is this, it's just a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No, okay, the motion carries. And it says assumption of office, but I'm already assumed, I guess. That's right.
We don't have to move any chairs on the dais.
Oh,
right
that's
now.
right.
Oh, good.
Easy.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll call for nominations for vice president to serve during the ensuing year.
I'd like to nominate Vice President McGurty to continue in her role if she would like.
Second that.
Thank you very much. I would be very honored to continue. President Swain makes it so easy.
All right, well, it's been moved. Director McGurty be vice president again for another year. It's been seconded. I'll call for the vote, voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nays? Nope. All right, the motion carries. Congratulations, Vice President McGurty.
Thank you.
All right, now for the infamous audit committee member. Current member is Director Hayes, I believe. And is there a nomination for audit?
Is Director Hayes interested in continuing?
Yeah, my intentions was to make this, to create a template for this position, since it doesn't really seem to have any guidance. And I did begin the year with a little bit of research and found no guidance. So I would actually be happy to spend another year trying to create some guidance around what this position is supposed to do.
Then I'd be happy to nominate Director Hayes for Audit Committee.
Yeah, let's second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that Director Hayes continue as Audit Committee member for the next year. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nays? Nope. All right, motion carries. Congratulations, Director Hayes.
Tough race.
All right, and then we have a legislative representative to serve during the next 2 ensuing years. Director Cast is currently legislative representative, I believe. Is there a motion or a nomination?
I move to have Director Cass keep doing the amazing job.
Second.
Third.
Third, fourth. All right, it's been moved and seconded that Director Cass continue as legislative representative, and she's doing an amazing job. So I think it's appropriate. Keep it rolling.
Thank you, guys.
You bet. It's a big job. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nays? No nays. Motion carries. Congratulations, Director Cast. All right, we're done there. All right, thank you very much for that. That was quick. We're now moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Reid, if you're ready.
Thank you, President Swain. And what a busy few weeks we've had as we slide into our winter break. I know that I had an opportunity. I think one of the highlights for the past couple weeks was my participation in a science experiment with fifth graders at Lockwood. Kirsten Brief's fifth grade class. She was kind enough to prepare an owl pellet lab for me, including all the accoutrements. So I joined her fifth period class as we discovered rodent skulls and other interesting artifacts and learned a lot more about consumers in the natural world. So I thank Ms. Briefs for that. And I will tell you, Principal Griffin and Assistant Principal Kadam joined me for that. Lot of active engagement in that science experiment with the fifth graders at Lockwood. Also had an opportunity to visit with our NEOPA unit, our office professionals, and talk about what reopening looks like. And we visited Bruce Scoura, Dugan Harmon, Joe Paperman, and I joined them to visit about the personal protective equipment that would be provided to them and how their workspaces would be set up upon return. And just answering questions on our reopening plans with our office professionals. Last week, we held an evening coffee for our Spanish-speaking families, and we had about 20 families join us and share ideas and questions regarding second quarter and just, the course of events at this time. I'm excited also to continue my school visits this year, and this month had an opportunity to visit Sunrise Elementary and meet with parents and also have a lunch bunch with students. And just our students have a lot of excitement about what they're doing. Tomorrow I will be at Timbercrest Middle School, I guess be at is euphemistic a little bit. And then Thursday at North Shore Middle School. So making the rounds. Participated in Ed Leader 21 National Superintendent Roundtable around equity in schools and reopening plans, and was on a panel with the superintendent from Pennsylvania, Ohio, and South Carolina, all in districts where they've had schools partially reopened and then recently had to close again because of community transmission rates, in particular in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And want to congratulate Maria Cisneros, one of our family advocates for she received a nomination from our Northern, I think, Urban Housing Authority. And that's a real honor due to the work and passion Maria brings to the families she works with. So we're very proud of her for being nominated and honored in a recent event for that. So that is my report for tonight, President Swain.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. Any questions, folks? All right. Thank you again. All right. Our next stage here is association and public comments. I understand, Dr. Reid, we do not have public comments or association comments this evening.
Right.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Actually, yes, I had a question for Dr. Reid, if I may, around the request for approval for the district supplemental curricula indicated for science and math. And thank you, Dr. Reid, for explaining a few things to me this afternoon, as well as to OB's CMAC meeting minutes. It was very helpful, very useful. But I did wonder, I mean, the reason it caught my eye was wondering about accessibility. I understand that these are proposals for bringing in curricula that won't currently cost the district anything, and teachers who would like to test this out. But it did kind of beg the question too about whether we have a mechanism for going back and reviewing new things like this that are brought in, how they're working, whether they've been dropped, whether they would like to be expanded upon.
Yeah, great question, Director McGorty. And I also had this conversation with President Swain over the weekend. I think these pilot ideas are often sort of ideas that a particular staff member or team bring to the CMAC committee as an idea to try. And I think what you're asking for is a program evaluation, right? So we tried it, we supported this optional supplemental program designed to improve a student's experience at some level. And then do we go back and evaluate, in fact, did it do what we had hoped it would do? And if not, why not? And if so, maybe we make it more scalable. So I think I will certainly work with staff to think about what that program evaluation could look like or what a cycle of that might look like.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Director McGurty. Yeah, just we had the same conversation a few days ago. It's it'd just be nice to have maybe an annual, some kind of I don't know if it's a review, but yeah, just kind of a come back to what we approved. Just there's so many moving pieces. Sometimes it's one teacher, and then maybe the teacher moved on to another district, and then some of these are funded by PTSAs too. So we might not, it doesn't really come back around to us maybe all the time. So yeah, just those an inventory of sorts, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we've talked about program evaluation, and I would have to say that's an area that's not a strength for us in terms of coming back around. For core material, there's a lot of research that goes into those decisions before we scale it up and across the system. But for supplemental, there's a little less scrutiny. So I think it's a fair question, and I'll work with staff on that.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Reid.
You bet.
Any other discussions on the consent agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I think I did.
Did you already do it? Oh yeah, we already went through that. Sorry. So yeah, I need another year to get the hang of this thing. All right. So it's been moved and seconded. And we did discussion. I will now call for the vote. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, next item is up for discussion is action items. Our first action item tonight is G1. This is the 2020-2023 collective bargaining agreement between North Shore School District and the public, professional and office clerical employees and drivers, Teamsters Local Union 763, representing the warehouse, sludge, and garbage truck drivers and delivery drivers / helper. Dr. Reid.
Thank you, President Swain. This is a negotiated agreement that has been carefully and thoughtfully bargained. Abel Gurmai, our Director of Human Resources, worked with Tracy Patterson, Joe Paperman, and in this case, likely also Bruce Scoura. And our association representing these key roles in our district, our warehouse, sledge and garbage truck drivers, and delivery driver helpers have been particularly important at this time as we are doing deliveries and dealing with topics of this nature. So we really appreciate these workers and the agreement that they've negotiated, and I would recommend approving it.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. Any questions? Anyone?
No, just glad to see that even remotely we're able to still keep going with all these contract renewals, and appreciate all the contribution from all parties in order to come to an agreement.
Yes, and just I'd like to point out there's a lot of detail and nuance in these things. So just to recognize the amount of work that goes into getting them all through. Very good.
All right, excellent. Hearing no further discussion, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Further discussion, I think we covered it. I will call for the vote. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Second item on the action item list here is request for approval of district core instructional materials for the Construction Trades Academy course for grades 10 through 12. Dr. Reid.
Thank you, President Swain. This item has been placed on the agenda by our Career and College Readiness Director, Damon Schuneman. And these are core materials, which are different than supplemental. They have gone through a rigorous selection process and review and have been recommended by the CMAC committee for approval for the course Construction Trades Academy. And I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. Any questions for Dr. Reid?
Just real quick, Dr. Reid, I'd just love to hear more about the Construction Trades Academy. This is a new CTE program for us, and just wondering which building it's going to be focused out of, and kind of what's the vision for the program.
Great question. I believe, Siobhan, could you pull down the memo for this? I believe it was Woodinville High School that we were going to house this program, but let me do a double check here real quick. If you could scroll up a little bit. Doesn't actually say, does it? I think it's Woodinville High School was the original plan, but let me double check on that. It was either Woodinville or Bothell, but I think it's Woodinville. And this is a course, obviously that is teaching construction and craft skills, and it will qualify as a career and technical education credit, which is part of the graduation requirement and creates another pathway to graduation. I'm not entirely sure if it's connected to WANIC or not. I'll have to do a double check with that as well, but I think it was intended to be a pilot WANIC course. And so that would be another aspect of dual credit with a WANIC course. So let me do a little research as to which school, but I think a student in any of our schools could sign up for it, provided they would be able to adjust their schedule at their home school if they wanted to travel to attend the course.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
With at Bothell High School, I apologize. Yeah, it's scheduled to be at Bothell.
Okay.
Thank you, Heather.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? I'd just like to say I appreciate this, appreciate Damon pulling this program together and putting it forward. my dad was he's retired. He's still with us. Is a union lather and carpenter his entire career, and it was a great way to make a living for sure. So it's good to have at least exposure to our high school kids so they can get a little taste of it maybe before they decide to move on after they graduate from high school, which I think is great. And then also I wanted to point out too from the previous supplemental curriculums and this one too, that in the CMAC notes, how it explained how the curriculums were and the textbooks were reviewed for equity, an equity lens to see if, people are different groups are represented in the pictures and in descriptions and things like that. So it was good that works. Continuing on. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Further discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, well, that's the end of our action items this evening. We'll move on to performance reviews. This evening, we are going to review Dr. Reid's monitoring report for superintendent parameter P12, which is financial administration. So Dr. Reid, please.
Thank you, President Swain. So last meeting, we did financial planning, and obviously we need to plan a budget and have a budget cycle, and then we need to administer the budget in a thoughtful way once it's written, planned, and approved. So P12 is financial administration. In some places, it's financial execution. I think we chose administration. And Siobhan, if you would pull up my statement here. Thank you. So this is my response. And if we go to the blue section, my interpretation and evidence of compliance. At this point, I feel like at the time of this report that I'm in compliance with the expectations and have not, to use language consistent with P12, caused or allowed a material deviation from the annual budget or budget policy adopted by the board, caused or allowed any fiscal condition that is inconsistent with achieving the board's goal policies, or place the current or long-term financial health of the district in jeopardy. There are a lot of indicators, and I want to commend Tracy Patterson, our Chief Financial Officer, Dugan Harmon, our Deputy Superintendent, Joe Paperman, our Chief Operations Officer, Jenna Volek, the Director in the Business Office, and Paul Field, and many of our staff who helped put this together. Tracy and I worked on it on several occasions and appreciate just the coordinated team effort on this. So the evidence covers proper financial and accounting systems, payroll and debts. And if we keep going, I would also like to comment on the auditing role that Mike Bailey has maintained, and that comes up later in the report, but it also pops up in number 2 here as we're looking at the Government Finance Officer Association budget model, the GFOA model, and continuing to work at a needs-based resource allocation model, which demonstrates an ROI approach to our initiatives, which is that return on investment. Do the things we're paying for make the difference we expect them to make? We also are maintaining the current general fund balance of budgeted general fund expenditures. And even in our 4-year plan, we've maintained that. Item 3, obtain, generate, regulate, or use relevant information. Any material changes, and tonight, again, we'll have a monthly report, I believe, from October. These summaries have added detail over the last several years and are responsive to your questions that you've had, and in this case, responsive to new state requirements for reporting. So we'll continue to have our budgeting process evolve. I guess I don't know how else to say that. We're also doing continuing work with our business and HR department on position control processes, and Tracy Patterson and Doug Hale are doing that work or leading that work at this time. So if we jump down to item 4, the internal control, and this again these are some of the pieces that Mike Bailey in concert with our business office have been reviewing and looking at. Our point of sale systems have been reviewed. A number of our just systems have been reviewed as we look at how I would characterize business continuity as a model. Whether it was the cyber challenge we had at the beginning of a year ago or this pandemic, we've been able to maintain business continuity, which is really, I think, a fabulous asset and a real test of our business department for sure. As we keep going down, we had another, of course, annual audit this past year, and just want to validate that we came through it with flying colors. And again, thanks to our business department, both general fund and capital. We've, of course, fully cooperated. The following under C are all topics that Mike has in particular supported as an internal auditor. And if we keep going down, I think we have page 7 and 8 yet. So again, these are compliance topics, and we've paused the fiscal committee, the finance committee, just because we've paused all committees involving staff so we can be all hands on deck for classroom work. We're gradually restarting the capital bond committee, for example, EDTF, and some district committees, but it's been a heavy lift for staff to do all the work that they're doing in the classroom and then also serve on extra committees. So we're gradually having those come back. And this will be a committee that likely will pop back up here in January or February. And then page 8, Siobhan, please. And then equitable fundraising as much as possible across the district. And Natalie Campbell, our community partnerships coordinator coming out of the communications office, works really hard on this. And our chief financial officer, Tracy Patterson, would like you to know she is working on ASB budgets. The pandemic has created a challenge to look at a pattern at this point, because while there's no money going out, there's no money going in either. So it's just kind of a holding pattern, but it's certainly on their radar. So that is the monitoring report for P12, and I would be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. Any questions, thoughts?
Well, actually, you managed to answer all of the questions that I came up with when I was reading through it in your description of here. So thank you for that. No, I've always been impressed with the amount of detail and the very thorough reporting of what's going on with the finances in the district and how consistently it's taken care of by you and your team. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Director McGordy. It's a great team. They're on it.
So I had a question, and this is for you, Dr. Reid, but also for the board to ponder. One of the bullet points is around not having an audit finding for 2 years in a row. And so again, kudos to the whole team for a lovely audit, and certainly what is a bizarre year. There were a lot of challenges they had to overcome to provide our state auditor's office with the information they were requesting. We are in the first year of the new McCleary requirements around reporting the spending of our levy dollars and separating out that. And we have already seen evidence that we are using our levy dollars for basic education, which is against the new law. Morally right thing to do, and it is in compliance with the federal IDA law. So, I want to make sure that that's clear. We are doing the right thing there. But one, do we have a sense from the state auditor's office that is not going to be an issue with upcoming audits, that they are recognizing that we have to comply with a higher law there? Or do we want to adjust our parameters so that in 2 years, Dr. Reid doesn't get a not in compliance because she's violated the 2 years of an audit finding because we're providing special ed to kids?
That's a great question. I would be in favor of voting that I would be in compliance, but I would also say that after repeated efforts to ask either OSPI or the auditor's office to put such a decision in writing, it's very clear that that's not going to happen. So it appears that the state, federal, OSPI, and legislative intent are not all on the same page.
If I can weigh in, it's a really great question, Director Hayes. You know, how the parameters written is that the district will prevent the district from having the same audit finding in 2 consecutive years. So perhaps that gives us a little time to see how the state's going to respond. I think with the exception of that special education funding conundrum that the state's created for our great financial administration team, you know, it's a helpful part of the parameter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would address your concerns if we wait for the state to, because they insist that it's not going to be an issue, and certainly that makes I would be optimistic it wouldn't be an issue 2 years in a row.
Right. Yeah, I just was a little bit concerned with the optics of if we got an audit finding, then changing the parameter so that it wasn't a problem. And but I'm again happy to. They do keep assuring us it's not going to be a problem. The only thought I had was maybe inserting a comma and, you know, with the exception of when needed to comply with a federal or state law. But that I'm just throwing that out there is something we probably need to start thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's actually that phrase might not be a bad idea. I don't know if we could we get to pull this up here in a little bit. Maybe it'll give us a few minutes to chew on that. I think it's a good suggestion.
Dugan texted in that as long as we use state dollars first, we can supplement. And I think it does bear a further conversation for sure, because there have been just a lot of, I would say, conflicting conversations.
Yeah, and again, I don't believe anybody's intent is for us to not provide special education or use the available dollars to do that. But I just want to make sure that we're not trying to address a situation after the fact. So I'm happy to wait. It doesn't have to happen tonight or even in the next couple of weeks, but just kind of keeping that ahead of us on our radar.
Great idea. Director Kogan.
Yeah, I'd like to comment too. I mean, the intention, as I recall, was to not miss an opportunity to fix something in our control with respect to an audit finding. And this, you know, with state law and audit policy, we've seen this before where you follow the state law, but then you get a footnote about complete auditing procedures. We had that for a couple of years. So I think the messaging is confusing sometimes to help us with this. So for me, yeah, that was the clarifier was, you know, what is in our control to adjust so that we don't make the same audit finding twice.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts, questions? Dr. Reid, I had Director McGurty.
I was just going to comment. I think those are the great question and great suggestions, which we can call up, you know, when we review the parameter in just a few minutes. But just thinking about it too, in terms of if we're going to address this within the language of the parameter, we want to make sure it's not specific. You know, I like the idea of, you know, something not in our control and or something mandated by the state and or something overridden by another agency. Yeah.
Mhm. Good point. All good thoughts. Director Cast, is there, and Director Hayes, are there, well, I guess I was going to ask if anything was going to happen legislatively at the state level to address this, but it sounded like Dr. Reid said no.
I think, yeah, it's not on anyone's top 10 list, I think, for this year. It's going to be such a short and process-driven session for them.
Gotcha. Thank you. Dr. Reid, I had just a quick question on number 6, the promoting equitable fundraising practices across the district. Could you just expand upon that? Like what are we actually looking at, and what are the issues that we might be trying to correct?
Yeah, great question. I know that they're looking at different types of fundraising, which is, I think that's what that part of the parameter referred to. So whether they were jogathons or walkathons, or, you know, the types of fundraising that are happening at buildings. I know there's a movement that Natalie supports to make sure that our community partners, that we're equitable in our approach to that work, and that fundraising, you know, anything over 10,000 in keeping with board policy comes to you as a board. Anything less than 10,000 that's raised, of course, stays at the school for a local decision, but there's still, there's an effort from our PTSA council, for example, to work together. And I know Natalie Campbell has worked closely with the PTSA council. So everybody's really focused on trying to make sure that whatever options, like the Science Olympiad that's coming up for elementary students, the foundation's supporting it financially. And we wanted to make sure every elementary school could participate. So that, you know, that's not technically fundraising, but there was fundraising to support a Science Olympiad. And rather than doing it just in one school or one region, we made sure it was able to be accessed district-wide. Same with the Math Olympiad and competitions. So we want our science leads and our mathletes to, and other activities to be able to be as system-wide as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've also worked with the art docent program to expand it further, and look at the materials and lessons we're utilizing. So those would be some examples.
Thank you. Was some of the thought too behind just looking at equitable efforts, I guess, where some schools might have enough money at their PTSA to fund something, and another school might have to do a walkathon or have kids sell popcorn, or to look at those types of, I guess, inequitable funding resources?
I don't know. I can check with Natalie on that. I didn't get the granular level of that, but let me check with her, and I can have something in the Friday brief on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Equity around fundraising, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
No, just a general statement. It's a great report. It shows the depth and breadth of all the work that goes on. You know, the transparent and really thorough work of our finance team. It just gave us such a platform of stability this year that we really, it was nice to have that bedrock without even having to think about it, and really appreciate all the work.
All right, anyone else before we move on? We will, okay. Thank you, Dr. Reid. Great presentation, thorough as always. We will now, I guess, entertain a motion to find Dr. Reid either in compliance, making adequate progress towards compliance, or not in compliance. Does anyone have, would like to make a motion?
Instead of putting up our 10 cards, we have to get to the unmute button first, right? Like, but I'd like to make a motion to find the superintendent in compliance with P12.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Cass, Director McGrady. It's been motioned and seconded that we find Dr. Reid in compliance with P12 financial administration. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. Oh, just logged myself out of board docs somehow. Hang on, Siobhan, I'll be right back. I don't know if I'll be able to. Oh, there it popped right up. Like, great. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone. All right, that's it for the performance review. We'll now move into information items. First of two this evening. First one is Capital Projects Fund Allocation Report for October 2020. Dr. Reid.
Thank you, President Swain. And this is our regular report. I know for a while we didn't see them because they were, I was just thanking our finance team. Tracy Patterson is excited that, our team really appreciates your kind comments because they do put a great deal of work in. So, and I appreciate their work. But these reports, this is the fund allocation report for capital projects, and then we'll look at the district budget status report next. These are regular reports, and now that we've closed books on the last academic year, we're now moving back into the rhythm of getting these reports. So I can ask Siobhan to pull that up if you have any questions about it. Or if you don't, well, actually, Siobhan, why don't you go ahead and pull the report up? It has been posted since Friday, but there's really no surprise here. And, it's business moving along as usual. So I didn't know if there were any questions from you about this or not.
I just have a really quick one, Superintendent Reid. So for the 2014 bond, I noticed we're down to just 2 line items. It's nice to see all the work that I think it's on page 2.
Okay, yeah, it's not on this.
Yeah. So, I just had a thought, if the team wouldn't mind, if you could talk to them and see what you think about this, just to let us know when it's all the strings are tied and right, and it's kind of closed out. It would just be a handy thing to know.
I know they have projects in the hopper. It looks like it's a softball field at this point, and I know we were looking at Bothell High School actually redoing the turf and setting it up potentially for lighting, if possible, as we look at new types of LED lighting that don't have a spillover and are much more focused. But I know that the fields, I believe, are the last piece. But let me confirm that, and we'll get the closeout report for you shortly.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Reid. Second item for informational purposes is district budget status report for October 2020. Dr. Reid.
Thank you, President Swain. And this is the other budgets other than capital. So Siobhan, if you could pull the budget status report up for October, please. We do have slightly less enrollment, but again, not significantly less in terms of budgeting. And it seems to be staying relatively steady. The general fund, again, investment earnings are $48,000 with the year-to-date earnings of $121,000. Expenditures and revenue month over month are consistent. Capital projects fund, debt service fund, if you want to keep going, please, Siobhan. And we can stop right there. The budgets are trending with no surprises, honestly.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Reid. Any questions? Want to scan the numbers there? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Reid. We will move on to pick up our last conversation and performance review on the policy review. For Siobhan, if you could pull up our parameter P12 for us, I appreciate that. Thank you. So piggybacking on our last conversation, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or other thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I guess to reiterate and to be clear, I get what my question is do we want to be proactive? And I'm very agnostic on this, so I'm not trying to sway the decision one way or the other. But do we want to be proactive, put something in to this parameter around that 2 years of audit findings on the same issue? That makes it clear it's specific to this change in reporting around levy dollars and funding of special ed? Or do we want to wait a little longer and watch the tea leaves, as it one way of phrasing that, and see where maybe the state's headed with that?
And I was wondering too, something that would give us a little flexibility. We could perhaps cite an exception when we're dealing with a monitoring report around that issue. If it's as clear cut as, yes, we had to comply with the law. I think waiting to see how they're going to handle it would be kind of helpful, because then we would know the best wording to use perhaps. But yeah, it seems to, when we try to work on these parameters, with a couple exceptions, we try not to have them be to a single topic. We try to leave them as broad as possible to help get the most benefit out of them. So this is kind of a single exception case that we're dealing with, which is what kind of made me wonder if it's just best to deal with that in the monitoring report. But I haven't necessarily convinced myself of that either. If anyone else have any strong opinion one way or the other.
Director Hayes, it might be helpful. Could you identify where you'd want the language specifically and the parameter you would be interested in amending, so Siobhan can pull that up?
Yeah, it's the section on the 2 year, do not have 2 years of the same audit finding. So a little bit farther down.
4D.
Thank you. Yeah, right there, 4D, prevents the district from having the same audit finding in 2 consecutive years. So I think if I'm doing the calendar math in my head correctly, since we're in the first year, it's not going to be this spring. I don't believe that they will be auditing this work, but I could be wrong. It may be that last year was the first year where we had to delineate, in which case this coming spring would be the first year of that. So if this is the first year of actually doing the auditing or doing the delineation of levy and bond or levy and general fund dollars, then we do have a couple of years before this could be an issue. But if last year was the first year, then this spring will be the first audit around that.
Spoken like a great audit committee member of the board. So sorry, I just had to pick that up. But I think it might, maybe Director Hayes, do you want to throw together some language and maybe we could take a peek? It might be easier to just look at specific language and then decide how we want to handle it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I also had a wonder now looking at the rest of this parameter, specifically for E, which immediately follows, again, thinking that it wouldn't hurt us to have something sort of generic in there in general, not perhaps anticipating, but, on the off chance that something similar comes up in the future, where we don't want audit findings, but, per 4E, we are constrained by federal, state, and local administration policies and procedures that govern what we're doing.
So I'm sorry, Jackie. I was writing down a reminder to do that. So I didn't quite track what you were saying because, and let me just clarify, in terms of E, federal laws go first, right? So if there's a conflict between your state or federal law, you have to follow the federal law, and so on. So what is it you want to try to do with E?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering if, E sort of covers what we do, or what I guess the audit finding that we're talking about. We want to make sure that we don't have an audit finding coming back, but like you were saying, we have to follow federal law as well. So I don't know if we can somehow reference E in D when you're, composing the language for it, or if that would cover it.
Got it. Okay, I got it.
Director Hayes, for myself and the audience, could you clarify the issue again for us?
Yeah, so in 2017, embedded in the new McCleary law, I don't want to call it a fix because it didn't quite do that, but embedded in that was that starting either this year or last year, districts needed to report in their financial reporting how they were spending their levy dollars before it all went in the general pot and we spent it. And that we were no longer allowed to spend our levy dollars on basic education. And this is true for local assistance dollars as well, as not just levy. And special ed continues to be underfunded. So, and we have already started to see in our monthly budget reports that work has been done where they're separating that out. And we are seeing already that that come next spring, we will have to spend our levy dollars to pay for special ed, which is basic ed. So, and what we have been working on, Director Cass, Superintendent Reid, all of us for the last couple of years, is trying to get the OSPI, the State Auditor's Office, to give us something in writing. There's been a lot of verbal assurances that this will not be an issue, but we haven't gotten anything in writing saying that in order to comply with the federal law, it is okay for us to use levy dollars to provide basic ed.
Awesome. Thank you. That was very clear. Is there, it was really helpful. Is there, is because they won't give us anything in writing, are they default? Is the state saying that the federal government trumps what they put into legislation and that we have that avenue? Because is there a gray area there that they're not willing to enforce?
So, my understanding of what's going on is that the legislature passed a law, the OSPI is implementing the law, but I don't think anybody really worked with the state auditor's office. And so they just take the law as written and enforce it. And so I'm a little concerned. Our very lovely, bright, talented auditors, they aren't into the nuanced and the weeds of special ed funding and the issues around that and so forth. So they're just going to be looking at what the law says and following it as they should. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that makes sense. Well, on one hand, it sounds like it may be an administrative code issue for clarification to the auditor.
Right.
But I'm just curious. I'm curious at the same time, does the federal law allow us to spend our levy dollars any way we want to? If it's attached to special ed.
The federal government does not get into that level of detail of how we spend. We have to spend the federal dollars that are designated for special ed on special ed. They do, and that is part of the audit, is making sure that the federal dollars that we receive, but the federal government does not audit us. It's the state auditor that audits for the federal government. And they don't, I don't believe they weigh in on how we spend state dollars.
Okay. Thank you. That helps a lot.
All right. Look at that, wearing my audit committee crown here.
That was, you dialed in. We should have voted you in for the next 5 years. All right. Did we want to, so Director Hayes, did you want to bounce that around in your head?
Yeah, I think I didn't hear anybody super enthusiastic either way, and I'm totally fine with that. So yeah, I'll keep bouncing it around, but please reach out if anybody develops a strong opinion one way or the other, and let me know.
And really quickly, Director Hayes, we can chat about this if you want to later, but what Director McGordy pointed out about E, talking about, ensuring that federal, state, and local administrative policies and procedures governing procurement are followed. So perhaps the solution is to broaden E, because that's just rules around procurement, because they can be especially sticky. I remember when we wrote the policy, but perhaps broadening E would help us instead of having to worry about how to write D. But
okay.
Great. Anything else in the parameter? Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Reid, we will move on to discussion of North Shore Innovates, North Shore Learns.
Fabulous. Thanks, President Swain. At this point, we have 4 more days before the winter break, and we've actually chosen to slow down this last week and last week before our winter break, with the expectation that we give everybody a chance to catch their breath, turn in late work, review content maybe that students had missed, or just sort of shore up kind of where we are, so that when we move into winter break, the expectation is that we really are able to put school down and take a break, a literal break, both students, staff, and families. When we come back in January, we have roughly 4 weeks before the end of second quarter or the end of first semester. And winter is hard in good years, that January, February, March, colder, wetter. So it's going to take all our energy. So our hope is to catch our breath this week, take a break for the next 2 weeks, and then come back with energy and excitement to complete our January term, and then be strong through February and March. I think with the arrival of the vaccine, there's a lot of hope that will have a positive impact on our planning. We're looking at other options, and I'll be sharing more this week with our community about plans and our thinking, but it really is, we're still full on planning for a possible return when it's safe and healthy to do so. Unfortunately, the numbers just are not trending in a direction that is hopeful today. Our belief, though, is with the vaccine and continuing to have a solid testing and tracing program in place, and our ability to maintain the social physical distancing and masks and sanitization and disinfecting protocols, that at some point we'll be able to return to school in a safe and healthy way. So at this point, that's my North Shore Learns report. And we'll just so proud of our students and staff. They've worked really, really hard. A year ago at this time, we didn't know what was coming, but we've really, I think, been resilient and worked really hard to try to continue the teaching and learning process, even in a pandemic. So really proud of folks. I also know our families have extended tremendous grace. There are so many adults, older siblings helping, and it's just really, it's nice to see people that have rallied and maintain that positive and optimistic outlook. We have a choice about that.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. Appreciate that. Director Hayes, you look like you have something prepared. No.
I have a sea of Post-it notes in front of me, and
I see.
Write words down, and now I'm trying to remember what they mean.
Gotcha. Looked like you were getting ready to say something. Any questions from anyone for Dr. Reid on that topic? All right, thank you. All right, we will move on to board reports and communications. Any new business this evening?
So I have one for sure, and if I can make sense of the rest of my, well, actually two for sure. One is the National School Board Association. They're not doing their Advocacy Institute in DC, obviously in January, February, but they are doing the Equity Day. It's a virtual event. It's free on February 10th. And so we can all attend. It's the link to register is on the NSBA website. And if more than, I have registered, so if more than 2 other people or more than 1 other person registers, then we need to let Siobhan know so she can advertise it. So I'm seeing hands wave on my screen. So Siobhan, I can give you that information in that link so you can advertise it, and it'll be on February 10th. And then Director Cass, do we want to reach out to Congresswoman Del Bene and maybe set up a virtual event with her? I believe might be a little quiet for her for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we could. That's a good point, Director Hayes. Usually in January, right, it's a little quieter for her. So what kind of topics would we want to talk to Congresswoman Del Bene about? Vaccines, CARES Act money.
So there's so many CARES money for sure. Broadband access, dollars to provide broadband. Yeah, I think we can easily come up with quite a few topics. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's get that going.
How many hours do we get?
I know we'll have to see.
Yeah.
She usually seems to enjoy hanging out with us. So.
Great. And then another, I think this is what I was getting at with my word here. So I am hearing and getting questions from the State School Board Association around the requirement of a vaccine for staff and students and where that conversation lies. And I honestly don't know, this being the first encounter for me of this situation. So I'm just curious how that conversation happens, who has that conversation around requiring a COVID-19 vaccine for staff and students.
So I can look into that, Director Hayes. I would conjecture the Department of Health / Labor and Industries / some official would be part of that decision making, but let me do a deep dive into that, and we'll have something in your Friday brief.
Okay, great.
The January board meeting. I suspect that we don't have a decision about it yet, but
Okay.
there will be a lot of debate about it in the coming weeks.
Yes, and I just need to know where my swim lane is so I can stay in it.
Let me do a deep dive and check in. And I'm guessing, with the measles vaccine and the measles situation, which is as close as I can equate it, that came from the Department of Health, that the rules were very specific. So we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Any other new business? No? Okay. Excellent. We'll move on to, well, we still have some business here before we go to board member reports. We have board liaison assignments following up in the same path as our positions or offices. So we have PTA, we have North Shore Schools Foundation, which are both Director McGurty at the moment. We kind of informally divvied up just kind of tracking city councils, mainly based upon where we live, and county also. I don't think that would change unless someone's moved. I don't think anyone has. And then what else am I missing? I mean, is that it? Traditionally, I'll go ahead, Director Cass.
Well, I just see the citizens group committees listed there too, President Swain.
Oh, that's right. And currently Director Cass and I are on that. In the past, in a kind of official, unofficial WASDA guidance, we have the WIAA, but we kind of went down that road, and there really isn't anything to go to or anyone to talk to, really. And I think personally, I mean, I was the WIA person that you guys dumped on me when I first got elected, which was, which actually in hindsight was great because I didn't have to do anything. I don't know. I think WIA and WASDA does a great job of keeping us up to date in their notes and the meetings. So I don't see any, unless you want to reestablish it, I don't see any need for it. Okay. So
No, I did it the year before you, President Swain, and I did nothing. I didn't even get newsletters. It was kind of an odd thing. So I don't know. It's probably like the audit committee. There's somebody out there that knows what's supposed to happen, but we haven't found them yet.
There you go. That's true. If it changes, we can always come back to it. Director McGrudy, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'd do nominations or we just toss it around. I mean, you're doing both PTSA and North Shore Schools Foundation. I don't know if you want to, that's been too much of a load, or you want to switch that up at all, or I'll start with you.
Really not much of a load. And I think that doing both, I mean, the vice president position doesn't have a lot of work associated with it. So I'm happy to continue with the foundation and the PTSA. Although if somebody else was really motivated to jump in there, I can consider that too.
So Jackie, I'm wondering if just for this year, this book thing is connected with the foundation. And so maybe because I talk to Carmen all the time anyways, maybe I can do that for this year. And
sure. Yeah.
Okay. That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah. And a good fit.
Excellent.
Yeah, it is, and I'm saying, I'm not saying that this has to be me. We are plenty busy, all of us, but it is, I think the foundation and the PTSA position are kind of good to rotate around, just in general, because they happen to cover the whole district. And so that can be kind of handy. So just something to think about on those. I agree, President Swain, if, kind of sticking with our geographic, municipality context is a good idea. I'm happy to be Woodinville liaison still. And the citizens group committee, again, if anyone's really interested, I'm happy to keep helping with that. It's they don't have much representation from the Woodinville side of the district. And so I've been trying to think of ways to help boost that, but we can, of course, certainly chat. It's just one of those committees that it comes every 4 years. It's not around every year. So.
And actually, I'm not terribly familiar with that one. You make a good point, Director Cast, about the PTSA as well as the foundation being district-wide. And, as I said, if any of the rest of you would like to take that on, the PTSA as well, that's fine with me as well. But I should pick something else up.
Well, I'm wondering if President Swain is okay. I'm thinking, Jackie, the area that you represent is going to be very key in our upcoming bond and levy campaign. And so that might be a good place for you to go, and they could use a little organizing.
Participating in the bond and levy group?
Yeah, that's what the citizen committee is they run our bond and levy campaign.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we probably shouldn't have 3 people on there.
Yeah,
No.
that's what I was saying. If President Swain is willing.
So President Swain, if you'd like to stay, I can step down.
It's up to you. It's kind of an odd one. Yeah, I don't know we can't really have 3 people on it. Although it's kind of it's an odd kind of committee, like as board members, when you're on it, we're not, for part of the thing. We're on it for like as a liaison and report, kind of coordinate, and then you become this private citizen, on the other side of it, as far as participating and that type of thing. So
I feel like it's very Kenmore and downtown Bothell heavy, the people that participate in it.
yeah, you're right on that.
Yeah, so I think to Director Cass' point of having board members that are coming from areas where we can really use some representation on the committee that are in those neighborhoods, that might be a good focus for this year. And certainly if ever they hold a meeting that Director Cass or Director McGorty couldn't attend, they could let you know.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a great suggestion. Director Hayes, especially, they've even the committee, the Citizens Committee has been trying to find more people from the north end to participate. You're right. It's kind of like it's the Kirkland, Kenmore, Bothell, crew, business crew, and it's a great group of people, Director McGurty. So I think you'd enjoy it. So I'm stepping down. Jackie, if you'd like to step up on that.
Absolutely. Put me down.
So we have Jackie there, and then PTSA, unless Dr. Kogan, unless you wanted to jump on something or.
Yeah, President Swain, I'm happy to volunteer to work on the PTSA or the citizens group, depending on whatever everyone else's pleasure is. I'd be happy to do it unless anybody hasn't done those in a while and wants to do them.
I think having you be liaison with PTSA, David, would be great. I don't know the last time you've done it. If you haven't, I just stumbled over my words. If you're good with it, it would be. I think you'd do a great job with it.
I'd be pleased to. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Director McGurty, you're good with that? Switching musical chairs a bit?
I am good with that.
Okay.
And I think it is a good thing for us to switch it around a bit.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, so we have it. Director Kogan, PTSA, Director Hayes, North Shore Schools Foundation, Director McGurty will be on the Citizens Committee with Director Cast. And then we'll have our city council tracking by residents. And anything else we're missing? Am I missing anything else on liaisons? I don't think so. Unless you want to create a new one. I think we're busy enough though. All right.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to make official the East Side districts. And I am very happy to have you and Director Cast continue to attend that, but I don't know if we want to make that official. I don't know if that's going to continue throughout the whole year, or
we're not sure.
I don't know if it'll continue. It was set up to be presidents and ledge reps, so we still kind of track. But that's we'll have to see what happens after this year, I guess. I can see it can definitely continuing into 2021.
Why don't Director Cast and I just continue with that and see where it kind of ends up, and if it turns into something on a permanent basis, then we can come back and revisit it. That's okay. All right, excellent. We're done with that. Board member reports. Before we adjourn, Director McGurty, you're first.
Okay, let me look at my notes here. Okay, so let's see. On Thursday, the 3rd and the 10th, I attended the WASDA network. Was that me? Oh. Am I still echoing?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what happened. So yes, attended the WASDA networking meetings, calls. On Monday, the 7th, I was at the Conversations with the Board, where we had a bumper crowd of participants, which was really great to see. And stellar input from the community about the strategic plan, as well as any number of other topics that night. So that was really great to see. On then Thursday, the 10th, I attended the North Shore Schools Foundation board meeting, and just a terrific discussion as always, and always amazing to hear the efforts that they are making to remove barriers for our students. Just thought I'd throw a couple out there so that people know. They have care team leads at every school now, and student-led mental health efforts that they are supporting. Ari, the student rep on the foundation board, had a terrific idea of students helping other students during this pandemic as tutors, sort of on the side. And then the foundation is supporting the March Career Day again this year. Skills for Life. I could go on for a long time. They're just doing some terrific stuff. So there you go.
Thank you, Director McGurty. Director Cast.
Thanks, President Swain. Yeah, I also participated in the WASDA COVID Thursday calls, as well as really enjoyed conversations with the board. Want to thank all the community members who came, who worked with the new platform that was so nimbly set up by our great communications team. I have to say, it really helped have the opportunity to interact with folks, and that was great. So my last thing I wanted to do, and I know we're going to bump into our study session here really quick. I just wanted to kind of gauge you all really quick. So as part of the East King County group, there's some thoughts about this. This kind of bleeds into ledge rep duties, but it's a little different than our ledge priorities in terms of thinking about reopening priorities. And I just wanted to, since we won't have a meeting for a month, there's some thought, I don't know if this will happen before the first of the year anyways, there's some thought of maybe finding some common themes that the districts would be, the school boards might be willing to kind of bring forth to our legislators, as in terms of talking about, so we leverage the fact that we have so many different legislative districts that we cover, that if we, if you think from us to Mercer Island to Issaquah, if we had some themes, we could maybe leverage those conversations. And they are topics that we have talked about as a board, but I just wanted to run it by you if anyone wants to talk to me about it. I'm not comfortable sending out a formal communication without you guys seeing, if anything's in writing, I want to feel comfortable sending out without you all seeing what's in writing. But the themes are prioritizing schools and reopening plan, the fact that the school decision tree around opening options is so siloed from the rest of the state communications and planning has obviously been a challenge for districts. And the fact that there's concern that would happen again with vaccination plans, in terms of how teachers and staff in general are incorporated in that. The fact that there's another point was the fact that there's guidance from all these different agencies, from LNI and Department of Health, counties, Departments of Health, how that's a challenge for districts as they try to think about options for reopening buildings. Supporting scalable and responsive testing and screening. This is something Superintendent Reid was talking about, the fact that you need an infrastructure. And this is something we as a board have talked about for several months. You kind of need an infrastructure to really make that dependable and a solid foundation. And then also, there are some specific, we know we're not supposed to ask for money this legislative session, but with the federal CARES money expiring at the end of this month, that's actually going to hit our Department of Health in the counties really, really hard. Then like the free testing sites that they opened up in Bellevue and in Seattle, that will go away. That was all CARES Act money. There's a lot of the contact tracing, a lot of that is funded with CARES Act money. So a lot of things that the county health departments have been able to do, they're asking the state to tie them over until DC can perhaps re-up those funds. And so that might be something that we would voice support for too. So those are just kind of the general themes. If anyone wants to talk to us about it, talk to me about it. I don't know how far it'll get. We have another meeting before the holidays, and then it'll probably gather a little dust until the first of the year. So that's my report. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Director Cast. I got me in the middle here. I just quickly, the SIP visit at Sorensen was a pleasure with Director Hayes, I could not believe these preschool kids were they were maneuvering their own computers and their cameras and asking the teacher if they could see their work. And it was really, really neat. I was really surprised how engaged they were and how excited these kids were. So that was great. And then the Eastside meeting that Director Cass and I have every week on Friday mornings, and conversations with the board, which is very exciting. A lot of great turnout. We're glad to see a lot of people show up and express their opinions. So that's it for me. Director Kogan, you're next.
Thank you, President Swain. On Monday, December 7th, I also was participated in the conversations with the board. And I also wanted to thank the community for attending and also staff for pulling off a meeting virtually with so many attendees. I thought it went really well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kogan. And now finally, Director Hayes.
Thank you. I won't belabor too much of the same things that I was able to attend, including the conversations with the board. But I do want to just take a moment and thank Doreen Milburn for an amazing presentation, the Sorensen, and I'm really sorry the rest of the board wasn't able to attend because it's absolutely one of my favorites. It's not just Sorensen, it's the whole early childhood education program that we got to hear about. And I really look forward to us being able to go as a whole team someday in the future, because it's one of my all-time favorites. But to President Swain's point, the work they're doing is phenomenal and really rethinking how they do their work in a way that I'm very hopeful will go forward when we come out of this pandemic and to the benefit of all. So kudos to all of them. The one thing that I did that was a bit different was on November 30th, I testified before the House Education Committee. They were looking for some guidance on work they can do to help us. And to Director Cass' question, one of the key points I made is that we are a community. We are not isolated as schools in our neighborhoods, that we are all part of a larger community and we need to be in communication with each other. So I hope that helps answer your question on my thoughts of what you're looking for. But yeah, we don't operate in isolation here in North Shore. We are part of the North Shore community.
Great. Thanks, Director Hayes. Appreciate it. Thanks for comments. Great meeting tonight. We have our study session at 5:30. Why don't we take 4 or 5 minutes to refresh yourselves and we'll meet back online. So I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.